right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome now to the Marina Democratic Club's forum for the candidates for Board of Directors of Marina Coast Water District. The main event. So just to review the process, candidates will be given 2 minutes for opening statements. Then we have a series of 4 questions.
Opening statements.
Right. Okay, sorry.
That's going to be around here.
All right, I was given information.
Sorry.
1.5 minutes for opening statements, candidates, followed by a series of 4 questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity of 1.5 minutes again to answer. We hope we will get some good questions from the public. Once again, a minute and a half to answer those, and then we will end up with closing statements from each candidate of 1 minute apiece. We have drawn lots, and Ms. Schreiner is number 1. Mr. Lee is number 2. Mr. Gustafson is number 3. Mr. Lay is number 4. And Dr. Zefferman is number 5. So first, let me introduce to you the candidates. Jan Schreiner is serving her 8th year with Marina Coast Water District. She's currently Vice President of the Board and has served consistently as the Board's representative on the Water Conservation Commission. She has a bachelor's degree in biology with an emphasis on fisheries from the University of Washington. She grew up in Hawaii and has a military circumglobal family made up of people from all the major continents, plus islands of the Philippines, Guam, Japan, and Cuba. We like islands. She works hard to honor the fallen through upholding the constitutions of the state of California and the United States by working to keep democracy a fair and open process. Her efforts to protect and enhance publicly owned water supplies benefit us all. Up second is William Bill Lee. Bill graduated from the California Military Academy. While serving in the Army, he received a teaching credential from UC Berkeley and a credential in supervision and coordination of education programs from San Jose State. He is a graduate of the Armor Officers Basic and Advanced courses at Fort Knox, the Commander General Staff College, and the Army Finance School. He served 9 years on active duty and 17 in the Army Reserve. He also worked for 15 years as a peace officer at the Correctional Training Facility. Bill is now retired, and as of November of this year, will have served 12 years as a member of the Board of Directors of Marina Coast Water District. Number 3 is Howard Gustafson. Howard has lived in Marina since 1958 and served in the Air Force between 1971 and 1974. He has a bachelor's degree in geology from CSU Fresno. Howard has 35 years' experience in geology and public works and has worked as a professional stormwater manager in QSD. Over the years, he has served on several local boards, agencies, authorities, and committees, such as FORA, TAMSI, and the newly renamed Monterey One Water JPA. He is currently serving in his 14th year with Marina Coast Water District, including 6 years as president of the board. He also served for 8 years on Marina City Council. Number 4 is Peter Lay. Peter Lay was born in Vietnam. He studied civil engineering in New Zealand in 1973. He worked in New Zealand and Australia for 3 years, and he has worked for the cities of Salinas, Marina, and Soledad, and Monterey County for more than 30 years. He worked for 22 years for the city of Marina. He has served as the chair of the Marina Planning Commission and a member of the Design Review Board. He was elected to Marina Coast Water District Board in 2012 and served for 3 years. Peter has retired and intends to dedicate his spare time to the board of Marina Coast for community benefits. And then at number 5, Dr. Zefferman was born in a military family and grew up all over the U.S. He has a PhD in ecology from UC Davis and a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering from Cornell. In 2001, he was commissioned as a civil engineer in the Air Force and worked on $36 million in infrastructure projects in Texas, including $10 million for the replacement of failing water mains and sewers. In 2003, he deployed to the Middle East and was in charge of installing infrastructure at a new airbase. He later revamped the maintenance program for an Alaskan air base before becoming chief of construction planning and design for the largest base in Afghanistan, which included the design of its water system. Matt currently teaches special operators at the Naval Postgraduate School. So we go to opening statements.
Please remind them about just as a reminder, I don't want you having to stare at me, but when I try to move this, you'll only have 20 seconds.
That's your 20-second warning, the yellow card. It's your 20-second warning.
I could pirouette in front of you, but that would be.
So we go to Ms. Schreiner, please.
And can we take the microphone off of the stand?
Do whatever you need to do.
Bring it on down the line. Well, there you go.
Oh, gosh, thank you. Okay. Hello, thank you. And thank you for hosting this forum, especially thank you for the popcorn and the snacks. I've really been enjoying that. And it's been an honor to serve on this board and to be vice president in this past year. I have run successfully in the other 2 terms as a Green Party candidate, but this year it feels like it's time to be a Democrat. And
Hold your applause.
I actually had a little book here to wait for the wild applause, so thank you. Sometime in 2016, I was just becoming increasingly impressed with the swell and the direction of the Democratic Party, and I just wanted to say that and thank you for that. I am a biologist by training, and some of my work has been in the private sector. I have even tried my hand at the challenges of small business, but currently I lead field trips with elementary school-age children studying environmental and social sciences curriculum. My volunteering with the local water issues includes participation with Protect Monterey County to promote the ban of fracking, the first such ban in any oil-producing county of the U.S. And with 20 seconds left, I'm going to skip one little bit and say I just appreciate the State Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014, and the agency that we participate with has received $1 million grant to help with that work.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I'm Bill Lee. I've lived in this town for over 40 years, in between being sent overseas from time to time, because one of the opportunities in the Army, of course, is to be shipped around. But I like the weather here so much, and once I started having children, I thought it was good to not uproot them. Of course, once I got more toward retirement, it just seemed like this water issue just doesn't go away, and I figured I could be of some help in trying to get us down the right path. And it seems like over the last 12 years sitting on the board, many times I was the swing vote to get whatever we were trying to do at the time, the necessary amount of votes to move forward. You know, these things that we're working on are, it's not new, and it seems like every time we come up with a solution, the old adage that the devil's in the details. But just getting it through. And to me, if you talk too much about it, it seems like there's plenty of people to point out what's wrong with the idea. But we have a solution we're working on right now. This is the first time that we've ever been able to complete a project, a major water project, the Ruach pipeline. That
Thank you very much. I know it's a short period of time.
don't worry.
Mr. Gustafson.
My name is Howard Gustafson, been a resident for 60 years, attended all the local schools in Marina. I understand what it's like to grow up in the city of Marina. Let me tell you, my father was a soldier, also the commander of the Sheriff's Department, 23 years. I worked hard. I graduated in geology and civil engineer actually as a minor, and a minor in history also. And my work locally has consisted of 35 years in geology and public works. I've built most of your bridges. Truewater Road Bridge is one of my designs and construction. Escaline Road Bridge, Powell Road Bridge, all of those bridges. My main concern with water has been always to make sure that the rates are low and competitive. I think regionally we have probably the lowest water rates around still. We met the governor's conservation goals of 3%, one of only 3 cities in the state of California. That's why the governor went to the groundwater sustainability agencies, because no other city was able to meet the 3% goal. It would have been devastating financially for all of those water districts. But we continue to fight. I'm a good fighter. I've fought CalAm now since what, 2011? And let me tell you, spent $13 million. We're a fighter. We've won 2 cases now that we were accused of, people, newspapers used to want to drag me out because I was a federal agency.
We go to Mr. Lane.
Good evening, my name is Peter Lay. I offer a lot of information, but if you can seek further information, look on my introduction on Nextdoor or look on my page on my Facebook. I work in Monterey County over 30 years, 22 years with the city Marina. I know fairly good amount of water, recycled water, wastewater, and I offer to the board my technical experience. I served for 3 years, and a lot of people question about my resignation. I get addressed that later on, but in that time, probably nobody know that I saved the district millions of dollars, right? Nobody know, except maybe Tom Moore, because he was in the negotiation. And for those details, I can talk to you later, or you can post a question. So the difference is I have a lot of time, and it takes a lot of time to be a good director. Besides just the standard board package, you have to go to the special report and the subcommittee, and you have to read the agenda from FORA or Monterey One Water, and that's what I have. And in addition to my experience, will be value to the customer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lane, or Mr. Lane. We go to Dr. Zefferman.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming to the last of the forums. As Dr. Moore said in my introduction, I'm a military brat, I've moved all over the country, I served in the Air Force, a lot of engineering roles. And one thing that I think the other veterans here might know about this too that I learned was how to get into a place, kind of figure out what the main issues are and what to do about them. When I came to Marina, my wife and I moved here from Salinas and started talking to people in the community and a lot of people in this room, trying to figure out what is it that's facing this community and how can I help given the skills and background I have. And the main thing that everyone said was water and working with the water board. I haven't lived here 40 years. I hope to live here for the next 40 to 60 years. And I'm hoping that what I do now can help with that. So we have a lot of short-term crises in the water district, which we're going to talk about today. But we have a major long-term issue, which is how we're going to have water for the next 50 years. And if you elect me to the board, that's what I'm going to be focusing my attention on, both fighting CalAm in the short term and their short-term projects, but also what is going to happen with this district 40, 50, 60 years from now when, when I'm one of these guys who end up here that's been on the board for a long time. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So we now go to the questions from the Marina Democratic Club, and we will start with Mr. Lee. When the Fort Ord Reeves Authority sunsets, do you believe Marina Coast should honor the jurisdiction's water allocations established by FORA, and why or why not?
I believe we should, and the reason is because it's as far as I'm concerned, it's already a done deal. There's no sense in bringing something in and start something else to argue about. You have to have a starting point, and as far as I'm concerned, that's as good as anything else. There's actually plenty of water around. It's just that nobody wants to do the things that are simple. And I yield back to my time.
Thank you very much. So we go next to Mr. Gustafson.
Right. Well, I think the Army has already allocated the 600 acre feet they have. I don't see being able to fight the Army on any allocations. we're restricted from sending any fresh water over to Fort Ord from our basin, although it seems Cal-Am may be able to do that if they do win with the PUC. My concerns are to expand the recycled water program and to make sure as the pipe is implemented and we expand the project that those become the future water sources out there and as an allocation. And not only that, but as a QSD, I've been experienced in stormwater control and management, capture. I've inspected hundreds of devices, vaults, detentions, infiltration basins, bioretentions, bioswales, you name it. I'm an expert in it. And I wrote the manual for the city of Salinas on inspection and maintenance of post-construction best management practices, which include all of your stormwater control devices. And I've pretty much built every project in Salinas that has to do with stormwater. They're a phase 1 city. It's very important. I've given the EPA all the reports annually and the State Water Resources Control Board annually. And that's a very important source of water for our future along with recycling.
Thank you, Director Gustafson. Mr. Lane.
Absolutely not. We should never honor the water allocation. And I can tell you why. I looked at the water allocation in 2012, right? I talked with the Vice President of CSEMB. I talked with the Army rep. And I looked at the new 50-year CSEMB plan, master plan, and I asked about the Army whether they're going to develop their property. The answer is not. And you look at the table, it's very crazy. You never seen the county Monterey don't have land to develop their land in the former FORA. State Park, no. CSEMB and Army, 4 agency, over allocated water. And what is the amount we're talking about? 1,200 acre feet per year, over allocated for the next 50 years. And you talk about the cost of the project, right, for the aspect of the EI mitigation, hundreds of $millions. And I wrote to the FORA board a couple of times, and they just ignored it. And so, just common sense, why do you spend million dollars for and keep the allocation they never yield for the next 20, 50 years? And nobody cares. So that's why we have a big mess with water, because there's no leadership.
Mr. Zefferman.
All right, so I'm going to expand. I agree with a lot of what Bill Lee said. I'm going to expand on that a little bit. So the main thing for FORA is that we need it to go away. And one of the issues that's keeping it from going away is figuring out how that water that FORA currently allocates is going to be allocated afterwards. And so there are other cities out there, Seaside and other stakeholders who want to keep FORA going so they make sure they get the water. And the one thing that we can do on the water board to help FORA go away is to settle with those cities what the allocations are going to be. And I agree with Bill that the way to do that is to, as good as any, is keep the allocations we have, because that's what all these cities, including Marina, have been planning on using. And so I guess the answer is yes.
All right, thank you, Dr. Zefferman. Ms. Schreiner. Our mobile microphone arrives.
Thank you. I think it's a really great place to start a conversation in preserving the allocations the way they are. But I think we also need to consider the annexation of the service area of Fort Ord into the jurisdiction. And when we do that, establish a process for future annexations. Right now, we are only this Monday considering an application for properties that have entitled developments and allocation already assigned to that development. But as FORA hopefully goes away, there needs to be an annexation process to bring those other properties into the district as they come on board with those water allocations. Each of the land use jurisdictions could have the ability to sign a service agreement with Marina Coast Water District. And that way, not only could they preserve that allocation, which I believe is a good idea, but in the future, which is very hard to predict, there could be a process for changing allocations written into those service agreements. So if there's some unforeseen circumstance that everybody in the room is having no idea about, it might be better in a service agreement to have a process to change the allocation if needed in the future by other areas outside of the jurisdiction of Marina. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. And question number 2, we will start with Mr. Gustafson. The question is, for approximately 70 years, it's been recognized that seawater intrusion has tainted our 180 and 400-foot aquifers, and the 900-foot aquifer is a limited supply. Given these conditions, what new source should be proposed and why?
Well, Ken Nishi and I worked on the agreement with PCA back in 2006. They were really mean to Ken. He opted out of going any one of those negotiations. So I finished the negotiations for the recycled water project, which we have today. 2007 and 8 began installation of the recycled water pipe while the roads were up. That's a part of my construction experience. I don't like having saw cuts out through the road and having ditches filled that never seemed to be repaired correctly. The recycled water will be used to service Seaside, but as we grow, the recycled water pipe, recycled water that we receive in our communities will be reused and placed into the ground as a barrier for saltwater intrusion, and not only that, for our own future water supply, because Seaside will be getting 1,300 acre feet, something like that, from us at a cost of $250,000 a year. We'll be making money on that. With that alone, I think we should stop our problems with saltwater intrusion. However, on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, my plans are to work with Salinas Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency to get the city of Salinas on recycled water and desalinization or whatever combination of water they need to get them off the basin. They are the problem with saltwater intrusion. It is not agriculture, and it is not us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gustafson. Mr. Lane.
So in 2012, I wrote a guest article on the Herald. You may read it. And I asked the same question at the State Water Resources Control Board. Why haven't they looked at the Salinas River? And nobody could give any answer. They forgot about the Salinas River. So that's one option is to take up some river flow during the winter months for surface storage or aquifer recharge. That's what the district is looking at it now. And then the other option is the, I mentioned in the Herald article, is the internet tunnel, which is under, working right now, and I gave a cost $100 million, and right now they're up to date to this year about 87, so very close. So you need to look at all the options, and what is said in Monterey County is nobody, they're just looking at certain options, they forget other options. So my answer will be using the Salinas River and a small desal plan.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Dr. Zefferman.
Okay, so in the mayor's debate, the Bruce Salgado talked about that recycling and conservation is really important for meeting our water needs, and I agree with that. And that's the cheapest way to save water. The thing about those is they don't make new water, and if we're going to, the state and the atmosphere doesn't make that much new water, and if we're going to meet our current needs, and for those people that want Marina to grow in the future, then we need to look long-term and figure out a regional solution to the water supply issues for the city of Marina and the rest of the county. And I think that the people who can lead that is the city of Marina. And if I'm elected to the board, that's going to be one of my main objectives, is to help Marina Coast lead the rest of the communities around here in finding a long-term regional water supply. And if that's desalination, doing a large plant is a lot more efficient than every community doing a small plan in the bag. That just kind of makes sense. If we can get there with recycling and conservation, it's great, but there's only so much you can do with that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Zefferman, we go to Ms. Schreiner. We got
All right. First of all, I want to address the term tainted just a little bit. I think it's often seen in those colorful drawings that the Monterey County has produced. It looks like there's a major red zone, this idea that it's destroyed, but this seawater intrusion has brought the level of total dissolved solids only within what is still considered to be usable water by the state of California. So I want to just be careful about how we use that term tainted. That water is still very usable. It may be needed to be treated. It may need some desalination, but it's not as bad as some people might get the impression of from the color graphs. Also, I agree, conservation has been phenomenal in our community. We have reduced as much as 25% during the drought times. We have fabulous incentives in our Water Conservation Commission for rainwater catchment that haven't been exhausted yet. We have gray water system incentives from the district. And so our landscaping can be done in a more efficient manner. I also believe in the Pure Water Monterey project and potential for expansion of that. It can produce 3,500 acre feet per year, which is the entire amount our community used during the drought. So imagine we just double our water supply with one project.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. Mr. Lee.
I think the Pure Water Monterey system, it's good for what it does. But the only problem is you have to put something in before you can get something out. And there's a story, a joke I was told years ago about this guy sold his mule because it ate too much. And so later on, the man that sold the mule, he saw the fellow that bought it, and he says, "Hey, how's things going?" And he says, "Do you know," he says, "I got that mule down to where he didn't eat nothing," and then he died. And that's the same thing that happens with when you're treating your sewage. If you don't put any sewage in, you can't get any out. And so the Salinas River puts 150,000 acre feet of water per year in the ocean. If you discount the farms, we use about 50,000 acre feet in all of Monterey County. So it seems to me that there's a little water in the Salinas River that we could use. The other thing is the Carp Colony people. They're way upstream. They have the rights to an awful lot of water. And we've talked to them, Marine Coast Water has talked to them, thank you, about purchasing the water that they don't use because they only built out half of what they were supposed to. So there is many other plans out there to use water, but again, we don't want to use them because they're too simple.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So the next question is question 3, and we will start with Mr. Lay. To what extent should Marina Coast Water District continue to fight against CalAM's proposed desalination project?
So MCWD should challenge CalAM based on the comments provided to CDUC, mainly the water rights. Number 1. Number 2 is the accuracy of the groundwater modeling. I think those are the big issues which you can challenge and look, talking about the groundwater modeling. I don't know how many people know that CalAM never used the result of the test design well. That's a big question. Why spend $1 million and but over 2 years, and now nobody can touch it. And because I think that's the area we should look at, and those are the main issue we should challenge in court. And in addition to the minor other comments, and we also should challenge at the when the permit is considered at the Coastal Commission. you.
Thank you, Mr. Lay. Dr. Zefferman.
I think that we should fight CalAM's proposed desalination project to the extent possible. If that includes, ideally, we get things done administratively, but if that doesn't work out, then I think we should sue them for all the reasons that Mr. Lay said. That's it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Zefferman. We go to Ms. Ryan.
Yeah, I would like to continue fighting this large project in part because of what I just mentioned about the groundwater that they are working from. I mean, they're talking about taking some from the Dune Sand Aquifer and the 1,400-foot aquifers of the Salinas Valley groundwater basin to desalinate for the Monterey Peninsula. Originally, the idea was to desalinate from the bay, but the way that the slant wells are designed and put in, they are only going into the groundwater. So this is a serious problem for our community. This is our groundwater resource. We have the rights to that water. Now, I recently saw in a free magazine called The Weekly that someone on Wave Street put in a well and is going to be making a brew pub. And he drilled through the granite, got into some water that was brackish, and he's going to be using a desal project. My opinion is CalAM could have done that themselves. They could have done a desal project in their own service area. But the recycled water project called Pure Water Monterey not only could be expanded to 5,000 acre-feet per year, but the state has awarded grants, $22 million in total already.
Thank you very much. And we go to Mr. Lee.
I guess what I have is a question, I'm sure it's the same question that everybody in the audience wants to know. Why is it that CalAM wants to come to Marina to get their water? Originally, when the project started with Marina Coast, we were going to use the brackish water alongside the river because there was plumes of brackish water there. And the two county supervisors that are no longer county supervisors insisted that the location that CalAM's at now, that be used instead. And I just always thought that that was interesting, that we should have, you know, whenever you get into partnerships, it's one of those things. The democratic process really comes to the front because each one of the partners has its own idea, in spite of all of the scientific knowledge that you bring to the table. You know, but especially the larger politicians, I think, you know, they all have their own ideas about what it is that should be done. So I think that we should continue to fight them, and I just hope that we can get some kind of sense out of the PUC and everybody else that's involved in the project as to recover our expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Minister Gustafson.
But what we need to do is improve the unity between the city of Marina and Marina Coast Water District. 2007 and 8, I applied for annexation of the CMEX plant. I foresaw a long time ago what CalAM was up to. I'm a military thinking kind of guy, and I wanted to outflank them because they were purchasing the flower ranch north of Charlie Benson Road because they wanted to be close to the outfall. So that showed me that they were going to build a desal plant. They've been talking to politicians trying to get their P's and Q's in order, and I got no support. So we met with them. We were going to go with a smaller desal plant in Marina, but then we met with them, came with the regional, and then the county and CalAM reneged on the contract and forced us into battle. I've been battling them since 2013, 2011. Spent $13 million. Came up with the aeromagnetic survey to define our basin and to really show to the officials in the state scientifically how our water is going to be affected by the slant wells. I did aromatic surveys when I was with British Petroleum as a geologist, and I know how they work and how effective they are, and it worked very well, didn't it? and it's a finer water, it's still a bone of contention. We're using it in court. We've won 2 battles now with Callum. We got 1 left. We're coming into court for the final stretch, and we're going to win. I have all the confidence in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. All right, question number 4, we will start with Dr. Zefferman, and the question is, should all the costs of new development be paid for by the developers themselves, or by existing ratepayers, or by just the new ratepayers, or by some combination thereof?
All right, so one of the things that I'm running for in the board and that I want to avoid with especially the large developments for higher income people outside of town is keeping existing ratepayers from their water bills going up to pay for that new increased infrastructure. One thing to consider though is that some of the development we have might be infill development for people who are at similar socioeconomic status of people in town. And I'm concerned that if we put too much burden on them, as new ratepayers, that they're going to have a hard time living in the area when they can afford it. So I think there's 2 different systems here. One is for large development outside of town, a separate cost center, to make sure that those folks are paying for new infrastructure as it gets put in, and as they gain voting rights, hopefully the cost of that infrastructure will be paid for, and we can keep those separate. And then also, but for new developments in the infill areas, especially for low-income housing, we need to make sure that those folks don't have an undue water burden going forward.
All right, thank you, Dr. Zefferman. We go to Ms. Schreiner.
My belief is to put that burden on to people who are standing to make the most profit off of the community resources here of land and water. So that would be developers. I strongly supported the capacity fee, the capacity charge increase that happened, I think, about 4 years ago. I thought it was a very good idea to ask the developers to pay a larger percentage than the Marina Coast had been previously asking for. And I believe even some long time ago, 20 years ago perhaps, when Seaside Highlands went in, the district didn't even have the capacity charges in place yet. So some of those newer residents, now they're not so new, 20 years, have been paying a surcharge. That I don't think it's fair to either create community CFDs, they call them, I'm blanking, community funding districts. I don't think it's fair for those new residents to have to pay an additional surcharge on top of their water costs. I think that the developer needs to take that responsibility. They are, they are selling those homes for over $700,000. They certainly can't afford 7,000 or something like 1 or 2% capacity charge.
Thank you. Mr. Reed.
Everywhere else that I've built all over the United States, there's always been capacity fees. This was the first time I ever went someplace and there was no capacity fee. But one of the problems here with the seaside development is that FORA was fighting like hell that there wouldn't be a capacity fee, which just absolutely did not make any sense. We made several deals with developers because we could see when the land use jurisdictions will hand us a general plan and say, okay, we're going to develop in this particular area. We know that we have to have a pipe from a certain size go in there. So the developer says, well, my particular piece of that development, I only need a 6-inch pipe. So we would make deals with them to go ahead and put in the larger pipe, we'd pay the difference. And then as it was built out, we would have the developers of the future pieces paid for that. And the developers have to pay for this up front because nobody has income. These entities like this, what money do you have coming into the city except taxes? Does that mean? Right, so I'm just, oh, I'm sorry. So anyway, I totally agree that when these places are built out, the infrastructure has to be put in the ground and then deeded over to the water district, or money has to be paid to the water district so that they can build it to their.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We go to Mr. Gustafson.
Well, it's been my experience in the last 35 years in public works that the developers pay for it all, period. They pay for the inspection costs, they pay for the review of the plans, they pay for everything. I've inspected the last 5 phases in East Salinas. I've worked for the city of Salinas for the past 10 years doing the Montebello subdivisions. You know, every 300 houses, they sink a new well. Every new house, they just sink a new well. That's what I'm telling you, they are drawing the water. And all the developers have always paid for that. Every phase of it, every part of it. They pay for even the wells, they pay for the schools, they pay for everything in that area. And they have to be held to that because they're going to make their money on it. They can tell me they're not. Look at the cost of housing. The problem I have is when I hear people wanting to create new agencies and new people and employees, we don't have any money to create bureaucracy for what? When we can make the developers pay for it, everything is in place already to monitor the developers. We have a public works department in the city of Marina and a building department. It's their responsibility to follow the ICBO conditions for development, which replace the UBC standards for development. And they have to follow every condition, every payment, every fee that there is. There is no responsibility for any citizen in the city of Salinas for any development in Salinas. And I think we've developed the same system here in Marina. I don't think anybody's paying for it. I'm not. You'd hear me yelling if I was.
Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. And we go to Mr. Lay.
So new development needs to pay for the cost of improvement. But life is not fair for many people in the former FORA where they have to pay, capacity surcharge $20 per month for water and $5 per month for wastewater right now. But I need to tell you some exception to this principle. For certain line or certain streets, say you have a 10-inch water line, it's already deficient. So the new developer need to upgrade to 12-inch. And the upgrade there benefit many residents along the road too. So in that case, you need to assign a certain cost to existing resident. But those are exceptions, very few cases. Mostly you have to charge the developer for all the costs. But the sad thing is FCWD is a contractor FORA, and hopefully very soon a lot of people in the former FORA can vote and elect some director, and we hope to change something from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lay. So now we go to the first of the questions from the public that we have received. And Ms. Schreiner will be the first person to answer said question. What responsibility does a MCWD board member have to conduct themselves in a respectful manner in their communication with the public?
Thank you for that question, and it has been put to the test recently. I did say in the beginning, and the introduction you gave me was that I uphold the Constitution, so the First Amendment on free speech is very important to me, but I also believe free speech doesn't mean freedom to be as rude and as disrespectful as a person might on a grumpy day. So I believe as a public official, we all have a responsibility to provide a model of leadership, a model of inclusivity, a model of building community. I feel like everybody who came and is paying any attention to this kind of forum at all, our intent is to build a strong and healthy community. And eventually, if it is even prosperous, it will be like bonus. But if we could at least treat each other with respect, and our children could be content, and our seniors well taken care of, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I would hope for in our leadership roles, and so, you know, sometimes I do get irritated. I might say something that I'm not really proud of, but I try to minimize that and keep it out of my public life. But I do respect that everybody has the right to say what they need to say.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schreiner, we go to Mr. Lee.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What responsibility does a MCWD board member have to conduct themselves in a respectful manner in their communication with the public?
Well, I'd like to think that we would all obey the law, whatever the law is. And I cannot remember the last time that one of my constituents, or even if they didn't vote for me, came to me and wanted to talk to me about something that we didn't carry on our conversations in a civil manner. But I'm not sure what can be done about it other than obeying the law. Now, just recently, a motion was passed the other night, and it came in front of the board, and a majority of the directors put this in. It's I forgot the exact name, but basically it says that that you will basically behave yourself in a manner that we would all like to be accustomed to. Is my time up?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Gustafson.
Well, my 25 years in office and serving in Marina, I've always treated people good. Always. Never have I not. You know, Marina residents, being a Marina resident all my life, growing up with my friends, going to Seaside High, graduate, Army kid, I can tell you, I know what it is to treat people. You don't know my life. You don't know who I am. I'm an open book, though. I've been here 60 years. You know, when I make comments in that, if I see my friends show up from Seaside, past relations from Seaside High show up in that, if they have a problem with anything I say, they would be there, but they're not. And the people I see there are some new people who don't understand maybe some other people where their position in the community is, or how their experiences are. You don't know my shoes, you don't know where I've been. Nothing about me whatsoever in my family. My mom's been in Seaside since 1937. You know, my sister was married to a black man. Seaside was murdered on the streets of Seaside. You know, I get online with the kids on Facebook all the time. You know, so you don't tell me about how to treat people here. I grew up, I went to Seaside High, and I've been a Marina resident all my life. And how I treat people is the same. Everybody. I treat all Americans the same. Period. That's enough said.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gustafson, Mr. Lay.
My responsibility to the public is to treat all the public member with courtesy and respect, and I try to conduct myself with that principle.
Thank you, Mr. Lay. Dr. Zefferman.
Okay, so I've been paying attention to this issue a lot in the last few months with people exercising their free speech rights on the board. And, you know, I grew up in, the way I was raised was that, you know, if the best thing you can say about what you're saying is that you have the right to say it, that's kind of the bare minimum. You know, we're in a public office here, we're elected by people of Marina, and Marina's a really diverse community. There's people from all walks of life and all ethnic groups here. And, you know, it boggles my mind how you can say bad things about certain ethnic groups in certain types of people in this community and expect that the people on this board are trusted to take care of people and their water supplies. And it just, you know, if you're a public official, it's one thing you're a free citizen, you have a right to what you want to say, that's fine. But if you're a public official, you have a responsibility, not just a right, to represent all the people and to speak in a manner that reflects the values of the entire community. And that's why I was raised. I was a military brat too.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zefferman. So we go to another question from the public. And I believe Mr. Lee will be the first to answer this question. How has the city aided or frustrated Marina Coast Water District's goals, and how can you cooperate better?
Well, all I can say is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. As Director Gustafson said a few moments ago, I mean, nobody knows what the other guy's background is. And the only way you're going to ever get used to each other so that you can work through things, and that's one of the reasons that this is going to go off topic just a moment here. The present board at MCWD, we know everybody now, and we get along extremely well, even on subjects that we want to argue our particular points. So that's the same way it is with the city of Marina. We have a MCWD and Marina city gathering. It's supposed to happen, once a month. And sometimes in those meetings, some people wax eloquent, so to speak. And depending upon the other person's background, somebody might be offended by something that's said. But I mean, that's not the point. You have to get beyond that. And you have to continuously work. I mean, there's been times in the past where the city of Marina, in my opinion, if the city of Marina had acted more responsibly, we wouldn't have this problem out here on the sand plant right now. But because the situation we brought with them, they opposed us, and here we are today. Thank you.
Mr. Gustafson.
Well, as I elaborated before, in 2007 and 8, I proposed annexation of the CMEX plan, went before the council. We proposed it with them in FORA, and we were denied. There was an animosity towards us, towards me personally, the city council. I didn't like the way they were proceeding, and so they held the ratepayers hostage by denying that annexation. Had we annexed, there would be no problem with Cal-Am today. They wouldn't have had the property. They would have had to go north of the Salinas River for anything. They didn't follow my ideas. They didn't follow my proposals. So that left the attempt to end run us. In addition to that, with the failed desal, my own city and people attacked us, thinking that we were to blame for the desal project back then failing when it was the county and Cal-Am. Didn't believe us. I couldn't believe it. Our own city people. It was an amazing thing when you don't get the backing of 100% of your own city for you when you have a project like this. So we're fighting them and continue to fight Cal-Am today. And we're trying to win a battle that the governor is using GSAs now to define water and availability, and potentially we could be on Cal-Am desal if it fails. There's just the two ways about it. That's why the GSA was created.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lay.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How has the city aided or frustrated Marina Coast Water District's goals? How can you cooperate better?
For the past 40 years, the relationship was not good at all. Two separate agencies and very few talk to each other and try to cooperate. That's only changed significantly in 2013 when we actually make formal contact and establish a relationship. So I hope we will maintain it now, and it could be improved much better, because there are few areas I think we can do better in coordination on the KLM project or the permitting for the new slang wells. And those are the areas I think we need to iron out with the Joint City District Committee, and hopefully it can be done.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Lay. Dr. Zefferman.
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure. How has the city aided or frustrated Marina Coast Water District's goals, and how can you cooperate better?
Okay, so I'm not as interested in looking at the past about how in the past the city has frustrated our goals, or maybe we frustrated theirs, but I'm really interested in working with the city in the future. I think that this fight with the CalAmp desal plant has been a good focusing issue where we in the city of Marina and even some of our friends on the peninsula are joining forces to work together to solve a problem. I think that it would be great if we could take this new energy and with maybe some new people on the board who have ruffled fewer feathers and that people in Marina are willing to work with, and focus it on long-term solutions for the water supply in the area as opposed to relitigating the issues of the past.
Thank you very much. Dr. Zefferman, we go to Ms. Schneider.
Thank you. One of the things that I saw a really great job of aid between the city and the district were at evidentiary hearings in San Francisco with the CPUC. And I thought the attorneys for the city did a fantastic job of pointing out that the price for the desal water was based on full capacity. And so you're hearing $7,000 per acre foot. It could be triple that if it's not running at full capacity of 6,000 acre feet per year. Also, they questioned the hospitality representative very carefully, like on the economic recovery, what percentage increase are you looking at for your occupancy rate? How do you know that 500 acre feet per year is going to cover that? Like, what's your use now? What additional use will be required at that additional percentage? So very sharp attorneys on the part of the city at the CPUC. They also worked very well staff to staff with the Ruat pipeline that just went in through the neighborhoods. I know some of the neighbors were inconvenienced and having a difficult time with Crescent Road and out toward General Jim Moore, but the city staff were fantastic on that. There were some sort of questionable, in my opinion, this is where it was a little frustrating, votes at FORA recently on the board community budget. So I'd love to see better staff-to-staff communication. I think the general manager and city manager are doing a great job given the time that they have. A ban on privatization of water.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. So our third audience question, we'll start with Mr. Gustafson. And the question is, what do you foresee as the elements for a desalination project in the future that does not include the current CalAmp project?
Well, that's going to be difficult. We fight the state. The decisions are being made to the CPUC right now and the State Water Resources Control Board as to whether the project that CalAmp's proposed will proceed or not. We're in court. We're fighting them. We attended the CPUC hearings. We made our point well known. We're known with the State Water Resources Control Board. I've met with the chair. I've had opportunity to meet with John Laird. I've known John Laird a long time. I didn't get the sense that had much support from the state. Although I see in the newspaper some inklings of potential support, but I don't see it coming out very well for us. I believe the groundwater sustainability agencies will eventually force us off of groundwater, basin water, leaving it for agriculture, and forcing everybody on to desal. That's what the governor's proposal is, by going from having all the agencies meet conservation goals of 3%, which was unattainable. Only 3 cities, only 3 entities in the state, including Marina Coast Water District, made that goal. So now it's the GSAs, and the GSAs are going to be controlled by Salinas Valley Groundwater Authority Agency. The sustainability is there. They're going to be the ones that are going to be really pushing. And I don't know, I proposed 2 desal plants.
Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. Mr. Lay.
If you want a difference, the only thing that can happen is for the elected official, make a lot of changes on their thinking. So if that happens, everybody will win, and the peninsula people will pay less for their water. You know, the current portfolio different and still can supply for many years, and after that, I think a new small diesel will come on board to serve the 4-door and in the peninsula, and that's the best scenario. But I think the KLM project will go ahead and will be challenging costs. And I want to mention another thing is the Coastal Commission has told KLM that they don't want to consider a project with slant well before they apply for the permit, and KLM said, you know, they didn't have any permit to do another testing, so that will go ahead with that. And you know, it's where the, you know, where you can see the leaders or not.
Thank you, Mr. Lay. Dr. Zefferman.
Could you repeat the question again?
Certainly. What do you foresee as the elements for a desalination project of the future that does not include the current CalAmp project?
Okay, so I just wanted to, I think this is important because this is a question about the future. The previous two respondents talked a lot about the desal project, but I think everyone here is in agreement that the desal project, we need to fight that and keep that from happening. But then the question is, when that doesn't happen, when we win this fight, what's the next step? And the next step is that we need to reduce what we can through recycling and conservation, and if we need more water, we need to do a regional plan, which is probably going to involve a large desalination plant somewhere in Monterey Bay, probably one of the areas where we can already do it, which is up in Moss Landing. So the only way we're going to do that is if we are able to work both with the city of Marina and with the other people that would be involved in the regional plant, the other organizations in the surrounding communities.
Thank you, Dr. Zefferman. Ms. Schreiner.
Thank you. I just want to start with mentioning again the ban on privatization. I think that's something the city of Marina could help Marina Coast Water District with, and it has been attempted by the county for the sake of desal projects in general. But I really believe the future we're going to need regional solutions. I talked with Representative Castroville recently. I know they're having trouble with Wells for Ag. The people in Prunedale are having trouble. It's not just the Monterey Peninsula that's having trouble. So I'd love to look more carefully at that Salinas River permit that Mr. Lay mentioned previously. Right now the county holds it. I think it's another 35,000 acre-feet per year if I remember right. But I believe surface water needs to be looked at, as well as more recycling, and consider desal as a last resort because the energy expense is so high for desal. So you're talking about the most expensive financially, but also in the time of our rising and changing climate that is affecting drought, it's affecting fires, it's affecting severity of storms. Desal is a high cost to our environment through the consumption of energy and the emission of carbon, as well as the brine and the things that we do in the ocean.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. Mr. Lee.
To begin with, I think it's interesting that Steinbeck talked about saltwater intrusion in the 30s. So here we are almost 90 years later, and where are we? We keep paying engineers to come up with solutions, and then we don't do it. And I think it's because we don't hold our electeds accountable. And a lot of times they'll say, well, you know, I have to abide the law. Well, the thing is, I think that there's times when the laws need to be changed. And I think that's the emphasis that we need to put on our elected officials. Is somehow push them, and if they don't do what's right by the people, get them out of office. And on the other hand, is if somebody is working toward the goal that we want, quit changing them every couple of years. Put them in office and then leave them in office long enough to obtain their stated goals. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So we now go to 1-minute closing statements. And we will begin with Mr. Lay.
So I want to address my resignation in 2016. A lot of people ask about it. So on January 4, 2016, I submit my resignation to the board. So I had two options. Either ask the board to approve my lengthy absence. So there were about 20 meetings in 2016. I probably missed 15 of them. And the second option is resign. So that's what I did. So I want everybody hear my official explanation and stop speculation and rumors. So so on January 6th, I submit my resignation. A week later, I was in another continent, another country already. So we traveled a lot in 2016, 2017, and 2018 is the end of our travel. And I hope you read my introduction and my record and support my candidacy and ask your family, neighbor, friend to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zefferman.
So right now, I'm teaching at the Naval Postgraduate School, and as I think Dr. Moore added to my biography, I teach Army Special Forces officers. And so you might wonder, why is this Air Force engineer with a PhD in ecology teaching Army Special Forces? When I did my PhD, I studied social science of environmental cooperation and conflict, which has a lot of the same principles, it turns out, with the type of cooperation and conflict that Army Special Officers go through when they go into battle. And so what I teach them, and what I hope to bring to this board, is a sense of figuring out when it is that we need to cooperate and when it is we need to fight. We need to fight the Callahan Desalination Project, and I think we all agree to that. And that's going to be bad for Marina because it's going to increase saltwater intrusion and give water to the peninsula. But after that, so we need fighters on the board. We also need people who can cooperate. That is, people who can go out and meet people from all the different agencies that are involved in water here and in the region and come up with a long-term solution for the region to get water for everybody.
Just a reminder, there's only 1 minute for the closing statement.
Okay.
I apologize.
Thank you.
He said Tom was clear on that. Tom
So-
was clear on that.
Ms. Schreiner.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight and for listening to all the candidates about important issues facing our community. And I just wanted to say I did hear the mayoral candidates, and I appreciate that our current mayor has been a strong advocate for our publicly owned water. We have heard some differences among our priorities, our methods, our values, but we all share in the responsibility and well-being of the publicly owned water, including all of you who are listening and thinking about this. We are very fortunate and appreciative of keeping Marina Coast Water District efficient, environmentally aware, and high-performing. Please consider all candidates for this board based on their abilities to collaborate and negotiate. Your vote makes a difference to this work. I would be honored by your vote in November. I work hard to earn your trust in publicly owned water, and our water is my focus.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. Mr. Lee.
Well, thank you again. And I do believe what one of the other directors said about the glue that's holding us together, the MCWD and the City of Marina. The thing that got us working better is the Callahan project, because you might have a lot of arguments in the family, but if somebody from the outside attacks you, the whole family gets together to fight them off. And it's interesting how that always seems to happen. But I am looking for your vote in November, and I hope that you will not only vote for me in November, but today it's so easy, with electronics, that you can contact your representative, and I hope you'll continue to do that. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Gustafson.
Thank you again for allowing us to debate tonight. You know, those that don't remember the past or are not experienced are destined to repeat that very past. I've been around so long here. I see they don't know the people on the peninsula, those that serve over there like I do. I've gone to high school with some of these people who are politicians, like at Seaside. I went to Seaside High. I know these people, and some of them haven't changed, even from high school, you know? And I heard many speak about joining or creating new boards or agencies at JPAs. JPAs are destroyers of freedom here. Look at the Modern Principal Water Management District, who created CalAM, who's allowed CalAM in. Why would you put us in jeopardy by putting us with a JPA, other people outside our community, to tell us what to do with water? Don't do that. Let's not repeat the past. Vote for experience. Vote for somebody who knows and the relations with the peninsula and can work together with them and always have.
Thank you, Director, or Mr. Gustafson.
Director, no.
Please, let's give a round of applause to all our candidates. For those of you interested in more information about the candidates, in the back table here, there is literature that some of the candidates have put out for you. I'd like also to ask you to thank the folks who put this together, really, which is all of
Thank you,
those. Finally, the next candidates forum will be held by Marina in Motion. That is scheduled for Saturday, September 22nd in City Council chambers.
If there's any food left, please keep it.
Yeah, if there's any food left, take some. Thank you.
Hey, girl.